Welcome into WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock, Jeff Upson with you here. Jeff, not only do we have two WPIAL champions that we've crowned this past weekend, we're also already halfway through the state tournament. Kind of weird to say that, considering you typically, tomorrow would be the start of a 16 team bracket up at Hershey.
After 26 years, it looks and feels a lot different, right? So yeah, I mean it's different. Uh, it's just something we're gonna have to get used to. I kind of like some of the changes, but for most of it, it doesn't feel right. But yeah, we do have two WPIAL champions, and one was kind of what we expected. The other one threw a little bit of a curveball at us. I know you were too busy at Pitt to come over and check out the WPIAL. You're big timing us for college, but it was some good wrestling, Greg. We saw some really good semifinals, especially in AAA.
First of all, it's they asked me a long time ago before the
Oh,
WPIAL even posted the times. So the
you
wrestling
saw
match was at noon.
Pitt wrestled Duke, right? What was it like a 30
Correct.
minute? Was it a
Yes.
30-minute match? It was pretty fast, right?
No, it was a normal time
Mm.
match. Thank you very much. But it was a blowout. Yes. Not nothing I can control, obviously, but it was something where I was asked to help broadcast it before the
Mm-hmm.
WIPO even put any times out. So
All right.
uh, you
I'll
know,
forgive you. I'll forgive you for that. But you did miss some really good matches, both individually
yeah,
and from a dual perspective, which we knew we were gonna see.
no doubt about it. And let's dive right into it. Let's start in Double A. The expected results, right, Jeff? You mentioned Burrell was able to defeat Quaker Valley in the semis 55-13. Derry over McGuffey 46-21. Thought that match could have been a little bit tighter, that Derry McGuffey bout, but at the end of the day, the two we thought would be in the title match made it there.
Yeah, and I'll start with the Burrow Quaker Valley match. A little bit more lopsided than I had initially anticipated. Uh, Calio Zanella got a fall at 152 over Jack Dimert, which I wasn't expecting him to get a fall there. Lasinski pinned Marcus Ritchie. Again, wasn't expecting him to get six there. The one spot where Quaker Valley performed well was Brennan Bressinger from Quaker Valley 215, who got a win over Luke Boylan. We know Luke Boylan had that really good Thomas tournament a couple weeks ago, but Bressinger was able to get the win in sudden victory. Another result that kind of stuck out to me was Matthew Dana majoring Bertucci at 139. That was one that, again, you on paper you kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. They're a little bit more closely matched up, but yeah, I think that match and I think you say the McGuffey one and Derry one you thought would be a little bit closer.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, there was just some like Mucci getting a tech fall over Wolf. That was huge. Barr then follows that up with a tech fall over Klim. Um, but to be honest with you, Derry got bonus points everywhere they needed to. They got bonus points at 60. They got bonus points at 52. Guess pinning bonus, Victor bonus, was not on my bingo card. I did not have that going as a fall. Um, so that was one that I think changed the match a little bit. And then Bateman majoring Tucker Main, and Beatrice getting a tech fall at 127. So things did just start to kind of go Derry's way, and they never really looked back, in my opinion, the way they were wrestling.
Yeah, yeah, all the ones you mentioned were the ones that kind of stuck out to me as well. Yeah, not to say that I thought McGuffey would win that dual meet, but I thought again, just score wise, to lose by 25 was just a little bit of a surprise, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean the results we got, the winners was how we
How
would
we
thought it would
expected
go
it. Yeah.
down. But the first and third place matches, were very good. McGuffey ends up beating Quaker Valley, maybe again a little bit more lopsided than we thought, 44-21, and Burrell with a big win to win yet another WPIL title, 33-27.
I mean, and that was a very intense match. It felt like a Burgettstown Burrow match in a lot of ways, right? There was a lot of just excitement on each side. There was a couple decisions. There was a couple really, really tight matches like Brady Brown and Isaac Lasinski, who he bumped up from 72 to 89 to wrestle Brown. That was a really close match. Even it started out kind of close with Jacob Stewart beating Brett Klim 4-1. Bertucci got a major decision, and then you expected Horwath to get bonus points there. Ewan Olsen and Zanella was another close match. That was an 8-1 decision. So you definitely saw some competitive individual matches. But then things started to really go, I would say Burrell's way. They got a fall at 285. Carter Thomas was able to get a win over Bateman at 121, and then Cam Baker got a tech fall. They kind of, at the end of the match, they swapped tech falls where Cam Baker got a tech fall over Beatrice and Mucci got a tech fall over Rosa. So it was a tight match. I mean, 6 points differential, and there wasn't like, I mean, there were some matches that could have gone either way, right? I mean, 189 definitely could have went the other way. I think 39, even though it was only 4-1, I still have a lot of faith in Jacob Stewart getting that win there. But they could have potentially saved some bonus points. Derry could have to make it a little bit more interesting. But I would say it was a pretty close match all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, really, the results that Burrow needed, they got right with Jake Stewart winning at 139 and Carter Thomas winning at 121. Lasinski, I mean, you bump him up. Brady Brown's very good. So
Yes,
Lasinski, for how strong he is, to give up that much weight to wrestle Brown, to keep it a 1-0 decision is a win in my book.
for
For
sure. Yeah.
Lasinski. So I mean, and if you'd ended up pulling out that upset, I mean, that'd have been huge, right, for Burrow. We've seen those upsets happen time and time again for Burrow in this long run of championships. But honestly, I think the way you think about Dylan Bateman getting a major decision over Tucker Main, I think this was the one that stuck out to me, Jeff, at 121. Because Bateman coming off that major over a solid
Yeah.
Tucker Main, you're thinking, okay, he might, beat Thomas here. He beats him, Derry wins the WPIAL title. So
Yeah.
that just goes to show how close that duel really was.
Yeah, and I think we kind of dismiss it as like, oh, Burrow just being Burrow and winning and showing up when it matters. But there were some battles within that war where the tide could have changed. Guess maybe not giving up a major to Bertucci. As you said with 189 and yeah, you're right. There was a lot of really good individual bouts, but you just always felt like it was an uphill battle for Derry. And, I just heard so many people say, like, imagine if they had Dayton Pitzer, imagine if they had Pitzer there. And it's like, yeah, I mean, or did I say Dayton Dillon?
Dayton, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if they had him there too. But, imagine if he was there and it changes the trajectory. And for sure it would. But you wrestle with who you have, right? And Derry was right there.
Yeah, they were without him all season long. I mean, we talked about early on if they could get him approved, right? You got to put Derry in as a potential favorite. It's going to be even more tight. But at the end of the day, they didn't have him all season long. But
Just a heads up, Greg. You have a rogue cat rolling around behind you there, so I don't want it to smash your camera like it did last time. Okay, so keep that thing away from the camera.
you know what? He did run behind there for a second. I had to go chase him away for a
Yeah, get
moment.
him out of there.
This
Oh,
cat's
him. I'm sorry,
panda.
him. I just assume all cats are girls. Sorry, that's a bad assumption.
Remember, his name's Rocco. Come
That's
on,
right,
man.
Rocco Welsh. I forgot.
You look at that third place match, the McGuffey one, Jeff. There were some good individual matchups there as well. Lucas Barr, Matt Dana had an opportunity to square off right in the opening bout. Lucas Barr with a big 4-3 decision to really set the stage for McGuffey in this duel. But a lot of good ones back and forth. But in the end, that one to me is really what stuck out the most.
Yeah, Richie Teagarden was one that was a kind of a battle, and Barr and Dana was another one. But outside of that, there was a lot of. I feel like that match was over very fast. The dual meet in general, like I feel like that wrapped up very early, and everyone was just watching the finals. Kind of the same way with AAA too. I feel like the third place match wrapped up pretty quick, and then everyone was just there watching the finals.
Right. Well, sliding over to AAA, Jeff, in the semifinals, Connellsville over Norwin 40-18, and Franklin Regional defeats Thomas Jefferson 37-36. We talked about it on the show, how close that one was going to be, and you can't get any closer than a 1 point win.
Yeah, I mean, there was some forfeits that maybe would have negated how close it was, but excuse me, that was a damn close duel. And let's start with Connellsville Norwin, Greg. And this one was, I think a lot of people expected it to be a good competitive match, but Connellsville, kind of like when you looked at Burrell, or even McGuffey and Derry, you expected it to be close, but ultimately Derry had the upper hand against McGuffey. I think the same could be said about Connellsville and Norwin, although there was some really good matches that I thought they could have gone either way. 114 for me was the highlight. Colton Klippa of Norwin gets the win over Zach Franks in overtime 10-7. That to me was a major win for Norwin. It just still was not enough for them to get over, because you had a couple. I mean, you look at the bonus point margin. I mean, Connellsville was able to get bonus points. They took advantage of bonus points at 215 and heavyweight, which I expected that, but I didn't really know what to expect with Tyler Gallus to a certain extent. They got a major at 107, which again sort of expected that. Nolan Rice came out and gave it to Gulabon, which was. I mean, Nolan Rice is really good, but I kind of thought Gulabon may be able to keep that to a decision potentially, and that was almost a tech fall. We knew Sidham was going to get bonus points, but then Jake Lilly gets a major at 133 over Patera, which, again, I kind of could see that being a decision. Vielma gets a fall over Klingensmith. Again, not terribly surprising. But the other match that went Norwin's way was at 145 with Gage Mamie defeating Julian Ruggieri from Connellsville 4-2. That to me was one that Norwin had to win that in 14. But again, it still wasn't enough. They gave up too many bonus points. When you look at 52-60, those were two tech falls. It was just too much bonus points for Connellsville for Norwin to even winning those swing matches. They just weren't able to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, Connellsville was able to run away with it accordingly. And speaking of bonus points, Jeff, that Franklin Regional Thomas Jefferson match you mentioned, forfeits. There was only one, and that was the final weight class when it was Braden White, who's been on fire. So who's to say he wouldn't get bonus there? But
Yeah,
there was
you're
not
right.
a single decision in this entire match.
We
Every single
didn't
one. There's only
we called that. Well, actually,
yeah,
we didn't call a single decision. I think we said there would be two, and 107 was one of them, and I think maybe 14 we said that, but we did say, and I remember my quote. There was gonna be a shit ton of bonus points. There
yeah,
was.
and there was. That's all there were. I mean, there's only one major decision as well. So every single match outside of one did not go the full 6 minutes, which and that major decision was 11-0. It's not even like it was a, hey, I just barely got it at the end sort of deal. But yeah, overall, I think the biggest thing is obviously that Franklin Regional, we talked about, can they keep up bonus point wise, because we knew Thomas Jefferson was going to get where and they did, right, with Bodie Marlowe, Maddox Shaw, Shep Turk. They got the bonus points, but Franklin Regional, they were able to match them.
I mean, they absolutely matched it, and I'll tell you what, I was not feeling too confident in Franklin Regional getting the win there after 107. But before that, so Bodie Marlowe pins Perks, which again we had that as a pin. LeBrier pins Montgomery, so they start at 72, so they move Pats up to 215, which I think is a good move. But I thought Montgomery maybe would have not given up 6 there, and I think that's why they put him out there. LeBrier says nope, let's get a fall there, so they go up early. Pats gets a major over Trent Miller. Again, I was impressed with the way Henry Pats wrestled. Turk got a fall, which we expected. Now, we'll stop right there, and I'll say that was kind of, not saying it was chalk, but from what I had on paper to where they were at, it was pretty damn close. But then I had Fennec beating Rehack and getting a decision. Rehack comes out like a ball of fire, and Fennec, I don't know if he was caught he wasn't caught flat-footed. He kind of got just like train tracked a little bit, where he was stuck, and then all of a sudden, Rehack just went right in and then just wrapped up a cradle, and it was done. It was it. 44-second fall, and I think they wrestle that 9 more times. I think it's probably maybe a 5-4 in favor of Fennec winning that, because then Bo Fennec goes on and beats Tommy Gretz from Collinsville, which we'll talk about. But to me, Rehack pinning Bufenic, I was like, that's it. Like, Thomas Jefferson's going to win this match, because that was essentially a 9-point swing, because I had it as 3 for Fennec. They erase that and they get 6 there. So that to me was a turning point. But whatever Coach Leby and Coach Sill said to the rest of the guys afterwards worked, because they came out and got bonus, 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 bonus to end the match, right? I mean, they needed guys to step up, and man, did they ever.
Yeah, and it starts at 114, right? We're talking about how well Robert Cordova was wrestling for Thomas Jefferson, and Titus Colangelo comes in and gets the fall. I mean, that was probably the match right there, right? If Cordova keeps it to a decision, or if he ends up, somehow pulling off a win, then Thomas Jefferson's won. Thomas Jefferson's won it.
It's over, right? Yeah, and I agree with you, Greg. I thought Cordova, he had looked good at the Allegheny County tournament. Titus is obviously a very talented wrestler, but I just thought in that environment, like it was going to be tight, and him getting the fall there, it started chipping away, and I was like, okay, maybe it's because I was talking to like the Westmoreland sports guys, and it's like, okay, well, where does that put you now in your prediction? And I'm like, well, it digs them out of a hole a little bit, right? But they still needed more, right? They needed Nassif to get bonus points at 21, which he did. They needed Ruan to get a tech over LeBrier at 27. They did. They needed Chase Smith to do everything he could to get bonus points. He did, right? Those matches right there, 21, 27, 33, were the matches that decided that duel. It wasn't 107, because obviously there was a 9-point swing and it still didn't matter. Nico Sarnik gets a fall. Again, not entirely surprising, but it just kind of added fuel to the fire there. And Max Firestein gets another fall. Maddox Shaw, it's, they sent somebody out there, and, he gets pinned, and then Braden White gets the forfeit to wrap it all up. But yeah, it was after 107, I was like, this is going to be damn close. And it ended up being pretty damn close.
Right. Yeah, and it was a great dual meet, and even though with all the bonus points, just a lot of back and forth, and set up really a great final and great third place match as well, Jeff. Franklin Regional gets it done. We'll talk about that here as they defeat Connellsville 32-25, and Norwin gets the win 36-30 over Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, and where do you want to start? Do you want to start at the third place match?
Let's start third.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously the main focus was the finals, but I was keeping a close eye on Norwin TJ, and part of it is, I don't know if it's the mentality, because you're in that dogfight of a semifinal, and you're a point away from making it to the WPIAL finals, and now you have to get back up and wrestle in the third place match. Probably Norwin, not saying they didn't have a chance against Collinsville, but they probably were a little bit more realistic with, okay, like, if we lose here, which, we might, we have to battle back for third. For TJ, it was like, we're winning the semifinals, and then we're going to challenge Collinsville to a WPIAL title. So then they have to kind of get back up for that. Some things that kind of surprised me was Zach LeBrier only getting a decision over Riley Schaefer at 189. That to me was already a hole that TJ was in. I had them getting bonus there, and then Brasco beating Trent Miller. I only, that to me was a pretty good. That was a good win for Norwin, even though they lost the match. Even though they won the match, I still think that was a huge swing for them, because I didn't have Brasco beating Miller. Shepturk getting the fall, which we knew, that was likely going to happen. Rehack getting the major, but then, which we talked about, Cordova being a key here. Klippa pins him. Gulabon gets a major decision. Then Brooks Blasco returns. I didn't think Brooks Blasco was going to wrestle at least until the individual postseason, if at all. He makes an appearance, and he gets a fall. After that, it was like, oh, man, like, Norman's got a pretty good shot of winning this. And, of course, everything else kind of went their way with, the part of TJ's lineup that wasn't as strong.
Yeah, no doubt. And you look at, you mentioned 215, you thought Trent Miller would win there, one win there. Now they're tied up.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, I mean, not to put pressure on the kid, but you mentioned, and I give you credit, Jeff. You mentioned Robert Cordova is going to be a key to Thomas Jefferson, and he was, right. He gave up 2 falls that really, was a big difference. Against great kids. Don't get me wrong, right?
Yeah.
Klippa had a great weekend. Obviously, Titus Colangelo is one of the best for Franklin Regional. So excellent opponents, but giving up 6 instead of 3, really was an area that I think Thomas Jefferson was looking like, hey, we're only going to give up 3 at most here at 14 because Cordova's wrestling so well.
Well, and that's the thing. When you look at the lineup, like, it's how much can you expose TJ from 121 to 145, right? Because everywhere else, they're pretty good, right? So, they did. I mean, I don't know the point total here, but Gulabon major, Blasco pin, sit-in pin, Klingensmith tech, Mamie fall. So I mean that's what is it? Only 2 of those matches didn't get 6 for them. Like, that was huge.
Right.
Despite TJ getting 3 falls to end it, or actually they got a tech fall at 72. Like, it's just, I mean, it was those early matches that kind of set that tone where I was like, it's going to be an uphill battle here.
And you look into the finals match, Jeff, and really Franklin Regional got a couple of big wins early, including wins at 215 and 107 that really set themselves up to win this duel.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know if that's like the implicit bias in me, but it's like when you pick, as somebody who does rankings and someone who makes quote predictions, like, I'm not saying you consciously want those to come true, because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. And I actually like it when people are like, you were wrong. Because I'm like, yeah, that's good. That means there's parity in wrestling. But subliminally, I'm thinking, like, how is Connellsville, like, in my mind, I'm thinking, how can Connellsville come out on top and win this? And it was like, every time you're doing that, you're like, man, but Franklin Regional is making it pretty damn difficult. Obviously 107 was huge. So much like we talked about with Robert Cordova, Bo Fennick, on the flip side, you give up 6 in a match where many people had it was a toss-up match, no doubt, and they could wrestle again, and it could go the exact same way. But Bo was in that match where you get pinned, where you knew your job was to go out there and get a win. Mentally, for a freshman to come out and then beat Tommy Gretz, a guy who you had lost to earlier in the season, to win a huge match 6-4, that changed the entire tide. And I think you saw that from the Franklin Regional benches. After that happened, you saw a shift. And it continued at 114 because Zach Franks and Titus Colangelo, they were in a battle. And Zach Franks, I mean, he was one of the ones that I said, if he's got to get a win there. He doesn't get a win, and that changes the whole trajectory. They move Pats up from 89 to 215. He beats Chris Cook. Chris Cook is a solid wrestler. Doherty at 285 holds Gallus to a decision. Again, that's a win for Franklin Regional. Connellsville, they keep it. They stop the tide a little bit because Nolan Rice gets a fall over Nassif, which that was a good bonus point win for them. But then Ruan comes out at 27, gets a major on Lilly. Chase Smith decisions Jake Lilly. At that point, you're thinking, do they have? Because at that point, I'm scrambling to look. It's like, okay, who else does Connellsville have in the hopper here to send out to kind of manage this, right? Vielma gets a fall at 39, which again, sort of expected that. But then 45, to me, even though Max had beaten Ruggieri before, he gets a fall, and it was a defensive fall. It was a crazy situation where Julian was trying to get out of a position. I forget exactly how it all transpired, but he ends up trying to get out of a position, ends up pinning himself essentially. And after that, you're like, this is it. Like that's the match, right? No matter what Evan and Lonzy were able to do, or it just wasn't enough because you had Cooper Lembo at 172, and Ethan Cartwright gets a major on him to kind of just put a cherry on top.
Yeah, I mean, Ruggieri needed to obviously not give up that fall to keep it close. But at the end of the day, even without that fall, Franklin Regional still would get it done. But yeah, there's just a number of results, and Franklin Regional got all the matches they needed to go their way. And, that you could just tell, I mean, you win that match against Thomas Jefferson and you get your guys to come out and get the bonus points you need. They're wrestling with a ton of confidence. And, just you see it from time and time again with Burrow, right? They wrestle with
Yeah.
so much confidence that you win some of these matches, the toss-up matches. You get a fall that you weren't expecting. Matches where you wrestle them in the individual postseason, it goes a different way. But here at the duels, I mean, everybody's wrestling and up, and it shows. And Franklin Regional gets it done.
And we talked about the freshmen a lot, and that was one of my concerns with Franklin Regional, was having so many young guys in probably the biggest duel of their careers. Look at the two freshmen that really stepped up in that Collinsville match. John Montgomery started it at 189, getting a fall. Now remember, the match prior, he gets the call and then gets pinned, right? So him and Bo Fennick both give up 6 in that first match against TJ. Now, Franklin Regional still wins, but you come back and they each get huge wins. Montgomery gets a fall, so not only does he get a win, he gets a bonus point win right out of the gate at 89. And then Fennick comes out and beats a guy who has been nationally ranked at times, Tommy Goretz, right? Those two matches right there, forget about 45. That to me is like, that says a lot about the preparation and having a short-term memory in wrestling. I mean, I don't know how you do that as a freshman. I mean, as a freshman, I certainly wasn't wrestling varsity, but even wrestling junior high, it's like you can't have a short memory most of the times. And I don't know, man. That was very impressive to see that shift, that transition, because it's so easy to get in that slump and stay in that slump.
And Franklin Regional gets the WPIAL title, and they're going to be looking strong here for the next few years, Jeff. Going to be a lot of fun to watch those guys, not only this weekend, right, the state tournament, but just overall as they continue year after year here in the WPIAL tournament. Looking ahead to the state tournament, so we had the preliminary or pigtail round, and then the preliminary round on the 4th, and so the WPIAL will be sending on the AA side only Burrell to the state tournament that kicks off here on February 7th on Friday. Burrell with a win over Penns Valley, 39-27. Penns Valley defeated Quaker Valley, 47-27. The other WPIAL schools, Derry wrestled Chestnut Ridge. Chestnut Ridge a winner, 43-22. McGuffey lost to Corey area 41-24. So WPIAL sends one into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I'm terribly shocked about that. I kind of thought when you looked at the way the brackets are, and I heard so many complaints about the way the brackets were set up, because they were like regional rounds first. So you had these guys that were feeding right into teams that they had already wrestled. I mean, you look at the pigtails for AA, Berks Catholic and Montgomery, that they fed right into Saucon Valley. McGuffey and Corey feeds right into Bishop McCourt. But if Quaker Valley had won, they're feeding right into Burrell. So like, just like we saw with Norman and Franklin Regional in AAA. But so Penns Valley and Quaker Valley, I wasn't too shocked to see Penns Valley win that. Penns Valley has a win this season, a 1-point victory over Derry. Now that was pretty early in the season, but just, transitive property, you expected Penns Valley to be favored there. I will say Penns Valley and Burrell was a really, really good dual meet, and it was a lot closer than I had expected. Um, Penns Valley got a couple big wins, but so did Burrell. Zach Rummel from Penns Valley was able to get a win over Jacob Stewart at 139, which I thought was a big win for Penns Valley. But then you go all the way down to 127. Cam Baker beat Eric Carlisle 9-8. Eric Carlisle has been on a roll this season. I mean, I've seen him in multiple weeks, and he's beaten at least 4 or 5 state medalists. He was a state qualifier last year. He could have added another name to his list, but Cam Baker comes out and gets a 9-8 win over him, which was really a big win for him. You look at some of the other matches though. There was obviously a couple falls that could have been negated potentially. Zanella gets a fall over or Fedorov from Penns Valley. You look at Bertucci getting a win over the other Fedorov, Sawyer. So that to me, those were big matches, but Burrell just had a little bit more than Penns Valley did.
So you look at the quarterfinals, Jeff, and obviously Double A. We can get into, 1 versus 2 potentially in the nation, Faith Christian and Bishop McCourt here in a moment. Obviously, Bishop McDevitt is a solid as there is number 3, and we've talked about how really it's a battle for number 4. Burrell is really in a good spot because you basically wanted to be that team that didn't have Bishop McDevitt falling down to you in the consolation semis, and Burrell does not. So they'll wrestle Faith Christian. Expect Faith Christian to win that match. But when Burrell falls down, they'll have Erie Cathedral Prep in the consolations, with Prep likely to drop a decision to Bishop McDevitt. And then they would wrestle the winner of Chestnut Ridge and Berks Catholic, assuming that winner would lose to Bishop McCourt in the semis. So really for Burrell, the opportunity to get that state medal is there. I mean, you have to beat Prep and you have to beat the winner of Chestnut Ridge Berks Catholic.
Yeah, and look, there is a path. There is a path. I'll put it to you that way. There's a path. I'm not saying it's a strong path, but it is a path. It's not like you got to go
best
through
path you could possibly have, in my opinion.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. It is not going through the McDevitt it's not going through McDevitt. Let's just put it that way, right? Who the top 3 are pretty clear in Double A. Especially when number 3 has already beaten number 4 pretty handily. Can we rewind real quick? And did we talk about Derry and Chestnut Ridge?
We did not know. So
we did not.
You
just decided to skip right over that.
Well, for the sake of the show here, Jeff, I know that we tend to go pretty long, so that's why I was,
I mean, we're only at 38 minutes. We got plenty of time to go, brother. This to me was an upset win. I expected Derry to come out on top against Chestnut Ridge. Chestnut Ridge, I don't know what Coach Deppy does to his wrestlers in their home gym, but he gets them to wrestle at a whole nother level. They got some huge wins, and let's put it to you this way. I mean, Chestnut Ridge, they were, I mean, I'm not saying they were favored in only a handful of bouts, but they were definitely it was an uphill battle, right? And they were able to get bonus points and swing match wins everywhere they were. It started at 285, 107, 114, and then Bateman gets beat by Easton Mall, who bumps up. But they came out and got just bonus point after bonus point after bonus point. Tread and Wiley pinned Brett Klim. That was, to me, huge. Ike's getting a tech fall over Guess was also a pretty big one. It was just everything went Chestnut Ridge's way because we know how good Derry. I mean, obviously Derry was in the match with Burrell. So Chestnut Ridge was very impressive to me, and it sucks for Derry, but they're going to be back and they're probably going to be, I would say, the favorites for the WPIAL for the next couple of years because they're just going to really reload. And Corey beating McGuffey, again, not really that surprising because Corey has a win over Reynolds. Reynolds has a win over Burrell, so you kind of see where they're at with that.
Yeah, I mean, Corey's one of those teams that you would love to see if they could be in that top 8 and see if they can make a little run, right?
Oh,
but
I definitely think they could have had they not run into Bishop Mc.
The Bishop McCourt.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and at the end of the day, not much surprise there with McGuffey or Quaker Valley for that matter. But yeah, I mean, Chestnut Ridge, they got up for their match, right? And not only was it just a win, but a 21-point win at
I
that.
know, right, right. And that's, I mean, to me, it was just, I mean, because Chestnut Ridge has taken some lumps this year. They've, there was times when you're like, or how, this is a down year for them. Now the Calvary's coming, but this wasn't expected to be a year where they're going to make it to the quarterfinals, and they do, right? To be honest with you, looking at them and Berks Catholic, I favor Berks Catholic. Berks Catholic had a really, really good win over Saucon Valley. It was only a 1-point match, but if Chestnut Ridge wrestles like they did against Derry, damn right they're going to be in that match. I think Berks has just a little bit too much, but Chestnut Ridge, man, they're I've said this for years now. They are just a dual team built, right, from top to bottom. They oftentimes the dual team championships way more important than the individual championships on a certain level, right? I mean, that the pride and tradition that program has is just it's pretty impressive. So I think when you look at Burrell, like you said, you know what you're up against with Faith Christian. They're one of the top teams, not only the state, but the nation. You kind of just got to battle there, right? Pick your battles. Your guys got to, just kind of have that same mentality of, all right, we're going to go out there and do our best, but then we're going to bounce right back. I don't know. I think, McCourt's going to make it to the semifinals. Obviously, I think, no matter what, if it's Berks or Chestnut Ridge, I think, you're going to have McCourt come out from there. And obviously Faith Christian, I have coming out from the top, but I do have Bishop McDevitt in the semifinals there. So as long as you're away from Bishop McDevitt, you do have that opportunity. Cathedral Prep is pretty damn good. They're a pretty stacked lineup. So but they're not on that tier of, I think there's a couple tiers. There's two with Faith Christian and Bishop McCourt, right? That's a tier in itself. Then you have the Bishop McDevitt tier, and then you have sort of the Berks Catholic Cathedral Prep Montoursville tier there, right? And then you can throw in Chestnut Ridge, and Burrell and those folks in another one. So, I mean, again, the path is there. It's just a matter of who shows up and who executes.
Yeah, and when you look at those different layers, right? It's going to be tough for Montoursville to get into that top four. You have a pretty clear 1, 2, 3. Who's that fourth team, Jeff? Knowing what the matchups will probably look like, right? I mean, this is the one area you feel like you do in AA. Burrell and Cathedral Prep, and then the winner will take on whoever you pick between Berks and Chestnut Ridge. Guessing it's Berks based on what you've mentioned to this point. Who's the team that gets that fourth place?
Yeah, my gut. Here's the thing. Cathedral Prep has a lot of flexibility. Cathedral Prep they have like 25 dual meet wins. I would say out of 20 of them, they've had different lineups. Like, I mean, that's just the reality of it. They've had so many different guys that can plug in. They can shift guys around. Now, they just recently had a core group come down a weight, but they still have the flexibility where they can move guys up around. Berks just doesn't have that as much. But Berks, where they're strong, they're really good. They have a couple freshmen that are really just wrestling outside of their minds right now. But they have some areas where they can be exposed. And Saucon Valley, I think, exposed that. Saucon Valley was in a couple matches where they exposed some of the holes there. So, I mean, after the Tuesday night round, I kind of favored Cathedral Prep a little bit. Cathedral Prep is just they've and I like the flexibility where they can move guys around and get the matchups they want. And I think they're going to get some bonus points. So I'm going to go Cathedral Prep. But you just, I don't know. I would feel better making that determination after I see them against Bishop McDevitt, right? Of course, you would always like to have the benefit of hindsight, but I really do think Cathedral Prep, they beat Port Allegheny, and on paper you're like, oh, that's only 39-20. But let's not forget Port Allegheny upset Clearfield, who for a long time I had as a clear top 5 team, at least definitely a top 10 team in the state. So I think Cathedral Prep is, their flexibility is going to allow them to maybe find a way to get into that third and fourth place match.
So the big question remains, Jeff, who is your favorite? I think, all season it's been, Faith Christian has
Whew.
been that top spot for you, but it's going to be the duel of, everybody's going to have eyes on it across the nation, right? Because
I
these
mean,
are two of
yeah.
the top teams in the nation, not just in the state of Pennsylvania. Which team is going to come out on top?
I mean, this is like Blair, Wyman Seminary. This is Del Barton. This is the duel, right? Everybody in the nation, not just Pennsylvania, is watching this. And not saying they weren't last year, because obviously last year it was competitive, but Bishop McCourt had a much higher bar to get over. Here's the thing: there's a few things that go into matchups, right? You're gonna have some guys that potentially could come down in weight that they're not going to see that weight. And what I mean by that is on Saturday, guys are going to have an allowance that their descent plan could allow them to get down a little bit lower than they typically would, right? I'm looking at 45. If Mason Wagner and Shane Wagner can both get in the lineup, that changes things for Faith Christian. If Jax Forrest can get down to 27, that changes things for Bishop McCourt, right? Do they weigh in Melvin Miller high? Do they weigh him in at 72 where he can bump up? Or I mean, again, I don't know necessarily what is all available to everybody at this point with health and descent plans, but like a Jackson Butler, I think for McCourt to get a win over Faith, they're gonna have to have. They're not gonna have to. They can't wrestle straight up. They're gonna have to get somebody in the lineup that's gonna help them get get to 7 victories essentially. I mean, let's be honest. There's gonna be some matches that are a lot of nationally ranked guys going head to head. Because you're not going to be able to outrun that, right? Whereas before you're able to shift guys away, you're going to be hitting guys head to head no matter what. 107, yeah, you kind of have the favorite there to McCourt with Keegan Bassett, but basically every other match, depending on how they do weight wise, there's going to be some matches there that, I mean, to be honest, they're toss up matches. And it's all about bonus points, and they're going to be tough to come, between on Saturday at Altoona, because both these teams are accustomed to getting a lot of bonus points, but they may not come here. You can look at the common duel with Wyoming Seminary, but I think that can only go so far in predicting where this match is going to go.
So what's your prediction?
Well, I'm glad you at least took me out to dinner first, before, unlike last time when you're just, hey, let's go in and get a nightcap. No, you just at least thank you. So I've done this 1,000 times on paper. In fact, we have a group chat going on. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, what if we bump here? What if they bump there? My gut tells me Faith. But I'm not I'm like a 51% to 49. Right now I say Faith. Greg, there's so many different variables, right? Because if when I say if Faith can get certain guys in the lineup to save a couple points, every damn point's going to matter. This is going to be a duel within 3 points. If it's more than that, I'll give out $100 to a lucky fan. Not that I have $100 to give, but I mean, if it is any more than 3 points, I'd be surprised, unless there's like some crazy forfeits that happen. But I have a lot of scenarios where Faith can win. I have less scenarios where Bishop McCourt can win. And a lot of that has to do with bonus points, when you look at the matchups. But that is doing it straight up. That's doing it with some tweaks and changes. I don't know what we're gonna get, to be honest with you. I don't know what we're gonna get for matchups, because there is so much flexibility, right? Do they bump Bachman around? Do they bump Patera around? Carfley, do they bump him around? I don't know, right? But man, we're gonna do another show tomorrow, just kind of diving a little bit deeper into this matchup. But yeah, I right now 51% Faith, 49% McCourt.
I'll at least say this, when you look at obviously from a WPIAL side of it, the Burrell team that has won so many titles. If you would have said, hey, wrestle it 10 times, Burrell probably only wins twice, but they somehow won. So that's why it's probably going to be hard to predict, right? You're saying there's more chances of Faith winning than Bishop McCourt winning, but at the end of the day, all it takes is, a guy getting an upset win or anything, and then the match is decided a different way. So should be a lot of fun.
I mean, yeah, whether you like it or you don't, it's gonna be a damn good dual meet. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Going over to the AAA side, and the WPIAL ended up with two teams making it into the quarterfinals. First, going from a couple of days back, Jeff, Norwin got the win over Obama Academy, 74-0. So as you mentioned, sets up a WPIAL match in the round of 16. Much further distance apart than the first time around. Franklin Regional defeats Norwin 38-13, and even more bad news for Norwin is Landon Sidden ends up injuring himself, not in this match, in the last match against TJ, and he is now out for the season. So not only does Norwin have their season end on the team side, but also their best wrestler misses out on a chance to defend his state title. On the bottom half, Connellsville with a 57-19 win over Du Bois to advance into the quarters.
Yeah, I mean, and we can start with that Norwin Franklin Regional and getting the news. And I remember on Saturday at Peters Township when Landon came off the match against TJ. He was like holding his hand, and I remember like he shook his dad's hand or gave his dad a high five, and it was not I think it was his left hand, not his right hand, or opposite, right? It was he was clearly holding one of his hands, and I remember thinking like, man, like he looks like he's in a pretty good amount of pain, right? But then it kind of left my brain until yesterday when I'm getting calls and texts about, hey, Sidden's out, he's hurt, and he's got a really bad injury. I'm thinking, what does that mean? Like, does that mean he's out for the postseason? Is that, what does that mean? So it sounds like right now he's going to be out for the rest of the regular season and postseason, but he doesn't have to get surgery on it, which is good. But he's gonna focus on getting back for World Team trials and making a World Team, which, being the number 1 or number 2 ranked guy, depending on what publication you're looking at, obviously you already won a state title. Does he have a potential to be a 4-time? You damn right he does. I think he is, he would have been in a good position to win 4 titles. But things happen, right? I mean, we've seen it time and time again where it takes a lot of luck to be healthy and rearing and ready to go all 4 years in Hershey, right? That's what makes it so unique and special. But I mean, look at the season he's had thus far, winning the 3 big ones, Doc B, Powerade, and Beast of the East, and beating some pretty big names to go through that. It sucks, right? But it also sucks for the team because, like you said, Franklin Regional, which it sucks that Norwin, they beat Obama, right? Which, okay, Obama, that was 74-0. Like, we say this every year, District 8 probably shouldn't have a team in the state dual tournament, but it's the way it is. Norwin feeds right into Franklin Regional, a team they had just wrestled, right? Imagine if District 11, which only qualifies 2, which they don't do a true second, if they qualified 3, right? Imagine the third place team going right into, imagine like a Notre Dame going right into a Bethlehem Catholic, or a Nazareth going right into a Bethlehem Catholic in the preliminary round. Like that would be, people would have riots. So that kind of sucked. But because I think Norwin was wrestling really well, I think they could have competed and been in a couple of those matches. In fact, if you look at the state rankings, of our top 10, only a handful are still left in Altoona. The WPIAL having two of them, Franklin Regional and Collinsville. I think personally, both Collinsville and Franklin Regional are in very good positions. Franklin Regional matches up well with Nazareth. Now, Nazareth has obviously Tahir Parkins, but they were able to bring guys down. So Jack Campbell's at 33 now, Parkins at 39. They have some flexibility. And on paper, you look at their team and they're like, oh, this guy has a 500 record. Yeah, but that's a Nazareth 500 record. I'd always throw caution at that. Don't be fooled by the numbers. And there's one thing I know, and that's Coach Dave Corral always gets his guys up, right? Especially in the postseason. But in saying that, Franklin Regional, if they have another match like they did against Collinsville, they can win that match against Nazareth. Now, on the bottom half, I expected Council Rock South to be there. They were the second best team in District 1, but they ended up third. They had already won over Council Rock North. They beat Gettysburg in that first round, which Gettysburg, District 3 is just down. District 3 is really, really not great from a team perspective this year. In fact, it's the first year since 2007 that Central Dauphin is not in the team state dual tournament, which is insane to think because that's like going back 20 years, right? Almost. I definitely had a hand in them not making it in 2006. I was one of those guys who gave up 6 points where I should have only given up 4 in a dual meet against Dallastown. So it still haunts me to this day. But it is what it is. You look at Council Rock South, though, they were able to beat Gettysburg, which again was sort of expected. I think Collinsville and Council Rock South match up really, really well. That is probably going to be the best quarterfinal to watch in AAA, in my opinion. I think Boyertown has a little bit of an edge over Central Mountain. I think Nazareth has an edge over Franklin Regional. And obviously, I think Bethlehem Catholic has an edge over Council Rock North. But I think Collinsville and Council Rock South is a really, really good quarterfinal matchup.
And if Collinsville ends up winning that one and Nazareth ends up beating Franklin Regional, we may, Jeff, based off of the rankings, right, where you have District 11 being the top 2 teams in this state tournament, you may see Franklin Regional and Collinsville wrestling in a Consi semi for the right to get a state medal.
So I actually do have it that way. I do have it as them wrestling. I have Nazareth and Bethlehem Catholic wrestling in the finals, with Bethlehem Catholic winning that. And the shame of this is District 11 has really, really good teams that are at home. Easton, Northampton, and Notre Dame Greenpound are all teams that could have finished in the top 4 here. They're just that good, right? And I don't think there's much like debate about that. I mean, sure, you can throw some other teams in there and say, well, yeah, Collinsville and Franklin Regional, but I mean, on paper, like there's a lot of good data behind saying District 11 is actually that good. I don't think that's just, and obviously I don't think I have a District 11 bias, but I mean, they are really good programs. Going back to what you said about Collinsville and Franklin Regional, I think that could be a much different matchup this time around. I don't know. Not saying Collinsville was taken by surprise by Franklin Regional, but maybe they put the cart before the horse. I don't know. But you saw it. If they can switch a few things, like obviously Tommy Gretz getting a win there, that switches some things, and Julian Ruggieri only giving up 3 instead of 6. That changes things. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I still think Franklin Regional, after seeing the matchups, like they are favored, but Collinsville can easily turn that around, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll be a heck of a duel to see who ends up as the team getting a medal, right? Just the way the brackets are, they don't have the ability to wrestle in a 3rd and 4th place match, which would be the ideal scenario. But they'll at the very least potentially produce one medal. And looking at the way this AAA side looks, it's like you mentioned, right. Not only does District 11 not have those teams here, District 7 for that matter, after District 11, right, probably have the next kind of set of quadrant of teams, right? You have
Yes, yes,
Norwin is probably, if not feeding into Franklin Regional, they should be in the quarterfinals right now.
yes.
Thomas Jefferson, we've talked about. I mean, with their hammers, depending on who they match up with, they can win a lot of matches too. So,
Bethel Park
you know,
as well. I think Bethel
yeah, I
Park is
mean,
another team.
throw them in the mix too, right? Because they were tight with Norwin. It's just one of those things where it's if only you could seed it. And I don't know. I don't even think you could seed this, because of how they need the regional site set up.
No.
Because you don't want teams traveling a lot on a Tuesday night,
But the
crazy
thing is,
places.
some of these teams are traveling crazy distances, and some of them aren't traveling anywhere. Like Boyne Springs is going all the way to Wallenpaupack. Like that's a hike. Whereas Norwin just has to go to Franklin Regional. You're in the same section.
Yeah.
Council Rock South, going to Gettysburg. Like, I mean, that's a little far. I don't know. Collinsville going to Du Bois is, I don't know. We can spend a whole episode on what's wrong with the team postseason setup and format. But I tend to try to spend less energy on being frustrated at the system and then just focusing on what I can control, and what I can control is looking at the matchups, right? Personally, I think you're going to have two District 11 teams in the finals, and I think you're going to have a District 7 and District 1 team that's getting on the top four. I think it's either going
How
to
did they finish?
I don't know. I personally, I think Coach Levy's going to be really mad at me for saying this, but I think Collinsville can beat Franklin Regional in a rematch. I mean, I'm not saying you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice, but I just think that, they can switch a few things, not necessarily matchup wise, but within those individual matches. I think Collinsville has a path to get to the top four. And honestly, I think Council Rock South too. Council Rock South's wrestling really, really well at this point. They got some guys back in the lineup. They got guys down to weight. I think Council Rock South finds a way to the top four. I don't really want to give predictions, Greg. I don't like offending people. I don't like people, especially the AAA guys. They tend to get on my ass a little bit more.
I mean, it's just a prediction. At the end of the day, the
But
guys
then
got
I
to
have
wrap.
to hear about all these. Oh, you asshole! You didn't pick us, and haha, look what happened to us. All right, so I think Bethlehem Catholic wins it. I think Nazareth is runner up. I'll say Collinsville 3, Council Rock South 4. Go there.
Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, they're going to wrestle twice, right?
Yeah.
So they'll wrestle here, coming up on Friday, and then potentially again on Saturday if that all holds true. So, I think at the end of the day, I mean, there's AAA. You don't have the clear cut favorites, right? I think Bethlehem Catholic Nazareth, seem to be on a collision course to wrestle once again, in back-to-back weeks, but at least people have a shot here, I think, is the biggest thing, right? And especially in the
There's a lot
third,
more
fourth place
parity,
match.
100%. And I think we talked about that going into the season. Is with AA, it was just like a coronation. Let's just have Bishop McCourt and Faith Christian just wrestle here, and just get it over with, right? I then we should throw Bishop McDevitt and be like, all right, because you have like the top two programs in the nation, how about you guys wrestle AAA this year? And honestly, they could have won it. I think they could have been in contention for a AAA title. Bethlehem Catholic is, and I've said this before, but they're missing two of their best wrestlers, Nathan Desmond and Colin Rath. Nathan Desmond transferred to Wyman Seminary. Colin Rath went to the Olympic Training Center, right? Both guys are going to change your lineup a little bit, right? Now, granted, Keanu Dillard and Nathan Desmond are the same weight, and maybe you're bumping guys out, but it doesn't matter, right? That's the way it is.
It's a good problem to have.
So yeah, sure it is. But Bethlehem Catholic and Nazareth, there's a lot of people that don't think Nazareth's the second best team in District 11. A lot of people think Notre Dame's the second best team. And again, without doing that true second, which boggles my mind. I don't. If you're sending two teams and you're the best, if not one of the best districts in the state, which that state happens to be the best in the nation, why would you not want to have your two best representatives going to the state tournament, right? Why wouldn't you do a true second? It to me, it makes there's no logical argument. There's nothing that anybody could say to me to make it make sense why they don't do a true second. I understand why they don't only get two qualifiers. It's numbers. I get that. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand the parameters in which we operate. There is nothing that anybody can say to why they don't do a true second, other than you really don't want your two best teams or making it. What's the harm in it? That to me just freaking boggles my mind. I'll end that topic there, but yes, there's a lot of parity in AAA. Not saying that I think someone's going to knock off Becca, but the rest of those three spots, I think it could be a variety of different. I mean, I could see Boyertown doing really well. Central Mountain, they battle. I've seen them. I feel like I've traveled around and seen them every weekend. Every tournament I've been at, I've seen Biff Walliser, and he kind of shrugs us. Hey, here we are again. Council Rock South, I think they're a really good program. Obviously, a lot of tradition. So I don't know. It's a lot less clear in AAA than it is in AA.
And the way Franklin Regional is wrestling right now, I mean, you mentioned
I know.
They match up with Nazareth.
Yeah, I'm definitely
they could easily get there. I mean, they wrestle the way they did this past weekend and pull off some upsets. If they beat Nazareth, there's no reason why they wouldn't be in the final.
100%. I would agree with you, and I'm definitely going to get a text from Matt Levy probably tonight that says, "Hey, MFer, you're wearing your Franklin Regional gear, which, Greg, I got a shirt coming for you. So even though you big timed us for Pitt, we hooked you up with a Franklin Regional shirt. It's about
Thanks,
time.
Coach Levy. I appreciate
Coach
that.
Levy hooked you up. So he's gonna be like, why what are you doing to me? Why are you picking against us? To be honest with you, Franklin Regional could end up in the finals. You're absolutely right. They match up well with Nazareth. I still think Nazareth has a little bit more in the tank. And I think they have a little bit more flexibility. But I will tell you this, Greg, those freshmen that we had just mentioned could be a critical key component again this time around, because Nazareth has holes. Nazareth has some areas where they can be exposed and they can give up bonus points. They just happen to be in some spots where Franklin Regional is pretty good. The downside of that is Franklin Regional is a very well-balanced team from top to bottom for the most part. Nazareth has some guys that are on a different level, right? Tahir Perkins is a guy who's just he's number, depending on what you look, top 5 in the nation, top 10 for sure. Jack Campbell's a returning state medalist and as good as they come. They have some other guys that are definitely going to be competing a little bit higher than what people expected. Again, that's a Nazareth way. I mean, Dave Krall, he gets those guys up.
Hey, you know what? Thomas Jefferson had Maddox Shaw and Bodie Marlowe both nationally ranked.
But they
didn't get it done.
I'm not the different. I mean, if you want to go there, we'll go there, Greg. There's a huge difference between having those studs and then having, no offense, what they had between 121 and 145. Nazareth doesn't have what Thomas Jefferson has, Gregory.
I'm not saying they weren't. I just wanted to. You're giving some love to those, studs, and Nazareth has them. Let's not get it wrong. They have those studs that are going to get 6 points. But at the end of the day,
but they're not. Their non-studs are regional medalists and state qualifiers. That's what I'm saying. That's where these are guys ranked in the 20 to 25 range in the state. I'm talking about, with other guys, it's like you're not even in the regional ranking. So, I mean, there's a lot of nuances there, Greg. But I know you just wanted to push my button.
100% I did.
I know
And plus you said I got the hookup with the shirt, so I got to defend Coach Levy a little bit here.
Oh my gosh. Hey, you know what? Donnie Hall from Near Falls with Doll said, when sometimes sometimes you got to zig when everyone else is zagging. I agree. Sometimes you got to switch it up a little bit, Greg. All right.
Well, I think that's a good way to end the show there, Jeff. Let's zig and zag and let's head on out and
Let's zig and
call
zag.
it a day for today.
Yeah.
But this time next week we'll be talking individual postseason. We'll be obviously recapping what should be an exciting AA and AAA state tournament, and then looking forward to individuals, which we got the next 4 weeks, and should be a lot of fun here as we wrap up the season. But for Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. We appreciate everyone listening in and watching in to WarUp.